Hi, I'm Ann V. Brady, and I'll be reading an excerpt from Chapter 6 of my book, A New Beginning: The Story of My Adoption, Life, and Service, illustrated by Eric C. Brady. Chapter 6. After I was signed out and cleared to leave Fort Jackson, my parents and I drove home to New York. It was great when we finally made it back home. I enjoyed seeing my family and friends. We went out to Hampton Bays for a few days after I arrived home. I missed my nieces and nephew. Joe and I went out to the Irish pub one night. It was fun going and out fishing, crabbing, and clubbing. When the 2 weeks were up, I packed my clothes and uniforms to get ready to leave. My mom drove me to Walter Reed AMC so I could sign in off of leave. I had to sign in on a Friday. I went to the barracks to sign in off of leave. The CQ, charge of quarters, signed me in as I gave her a copy of my orders. She asked me if I was rare. I told her I didn't think so. I told her I was assigned to United States Army Institute of Dental Research. The CQ told me I needed to report to duty at the CQ desk on Monday at 0700. My mom then drove us to my Uncle Tom's house in Potomac, Maryland. We spent the weekend with my uncle and cousins. My mom drove me to the barracks and she kissed me goodbye and left to drive home. That Monday, I reported to CQ. I was given a room in the barracks. I put on my uniform in my new room. CQ gave me directions to USADR. I then reported to the SFC at USADR. I was introduced to the colonel that hired me. He then took me on the tour of USADR. I met all the civilians and enlisted. I saw the labs. We had a vet section, a chemistry lab, and a microbiology lab where I would be working. I met the manager of the microbiology lab, Jean, who was a civilian, and SP5, Specialist 5, Sandy D'Alessandro, who was the NCO over the microbiology lab. I also met my coworkers, Maria and Ron. Both were SP5. When I signed in at Supply, I was given 4 white uniforms, 2 dresses, and 2 pairs of pantsuits. I always wore the pantsuits. Maria was also Sandy's roommate. Most of the enlisted were going for their master's degree and encouraged me to go for it too. The problem was I didn't have a car. I told Sandy that when I signed in off of leave, that the CQ asked me if I was rare. Sandy explained to me that the CQ was asking me if I was assigned to RARE, Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. Both Ron and Maria took upon themselves to try to get me to stop smoking. When Sandy and I were working in a room, Ron would come in and ask whose cigarette was in the ashtray. If I said it was mine, he would put the cigarette out in my coffee. Sandy spent her time teaching me the ropes. I learned a lot. I had 3 months to go before I was automatically promoted to SP4. The other day, aside from working in the lab, the other duty, aside from working in the lab, was that all enlisted had to rotate being a driver. Our job was to drive around officers or pick up specimens or other items needed. Driving duty was rotated every week. I had to take a driving test given by the motor pool and pass in order to be a driver. It was the same type of test as every other driving test. When it came to the driving portion of the test, the instructor had 4 of us take turns driving. I passed and got my military driver's license. Drivers had to drive officers to places like Fort Meade, Fort Detrick, and the Pentagon. There was the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology on Walter Reed AMC. It was a museum and very interesting. I enjoyed going to the NCO EM Club. They usually had a DJ there. He played oldies and some disco. The DJ was an SGM. He was black and had a white girlfriend. I became good friends with them both. He told me that he liked oldies and his girlfriend liked disco music. They were both very nice people. After I was promoted to SP4, Sandy gave me a study guide for the NCO promotion guide. I studied every day after work. In October, we had to take the semi annual PT test. We had to perform a series of push ups, sit ups, and a 2 mile run. We were graded in push ups and sit ups by age and sex. 2 mile run was time. I got into the front leaning rest position to start my push ups in 2 minutes. For 2 minutes. The grader told me I could do female push ups if I wanted to. I didn't know what she was talking about. In basic, everyone did push ups the same way. I had never heard of female push ups. When I didn't change my position, I was forced to get on my knees to perform female push ups. It felt like cheating. It was too easy. You perform female push ups by starting on your knees and pushing your upper body up and down. I did twice as many female push ups as I could normally perform regular push ups. There was no difference in how females perform sit ups and the run. Sandy gave me a published signed dental research article that she co authored entitled Immunoglobulins in Periodontal Tissues, and below is a picture of that with her signature on it. As you can see, I still have it to this day. She is proud to have been published, but she also wanted to let me know that with hard work, I might someday also get published as a co author. Usually, I went to lunch in the cafeteria at Walter Reed with Sandy, Maria, and Ron. It was a lazy Susan style cafeteria. One day, I picked up a grilled cheese sandwich off the turning counter. When I got to our table, I was surprised that when I took a bite because there was no cheese. It would take two. I ate the 2 pieces of toasted bread because I figured the line was long and it would take too long. Sometimes technicians from the morgue would eat would sit near us and try to gross us out. It never worked. One day I left my fatigue jacket outside on a hanger, then went in to eat. When we left to go back to work, I found my jacket had been stolen. I was upset and confused as to why they would steal a jacket with my name tag sewn on it. Later that night, after work, I went to the military clothing store at Forest Glen Annex. I asked the clerk where I could find a fatigue jacket. She told me there's a shortage of fatigue jackets, so we can only sell the jackets to male soldiers. I told her that maybe that's why someone stole my fatigue jacket outside of the cafeteria. Clerk looked shocked at she sputtered. They stole your fatigue jacket? I replied, yes, they did. I was surprised when she brought me a male fatigue jacket. I went there to buy a female jacket. I tried the jacket on and then bought it. I took the jacket to the seamstress to sew on my name tag. I always kept my jacket with me when we went to lunch after that. Back then, women's and men's uniforms, when it came to fatigues, were different. Women's fatigues had more pockets and they had to be ironed. Men's fatigues were permanent press. Women's fatigue jackets had more pockets and were styled a little differently. I enjoyed working for USAIDer. It was interesting and I learned a lot. Now that I was a SP4, I sometimes had to do CQ. CQ was from 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m., a 24-hour shift, and you had to stay up the whole 24 hours. You were allowed time to go eat lunch and dinner. As CQ, I was also in charge of the flag detail during Reveille and daily retreat. One day, we all had to go to the Pentagon for a reception. Afterwards, Sandy told me that she had been informed by Colonel D that my rank insignia was the wrong size. I didn't know there were 2 sizes of rank, and no one else noticed. Excuse me. The male rank insignia was larger than the female rank, and I had bought male rank. I had to buy a new jacket and have the seamstress sew on female rank. This is because I had used a special glue that had to be ironed on for the rank to stick. I had followed the directions on how to remove the rank without leaving any marks on my Class A jacket. Unfortunately, it didn't work. As I was studying the study guide for the promotion board, I came across a question. It asked, how many trucks are on the post? I told Sandy and Maria about the question, then asked them, how the hell am I supposed to know how many trucks there are on post? There have to be hundreds of trucks at the motor pool. They informed me that a truck was the ball on top of a flagpole and that there was only one truck on base. I thanked them for telling me that. One day, Sandy asked me if I was still wearing my dog tags. I told her yes and asked why she wanted to know. She told me that they could always tell when I was coming because they could hear my dog tags. She told me, you don't have to wear them here, don't you? I had gotten used to wearing my dog tags all the time. I put them away in my purse and never wore them again. My mom was sending me money to fly home every weekend. I would have to buy a two-way ticket on the shuttle flight from D.C. to New York. I enjoyed going home on weekends, but didn't want to go home every weekend. After several months, Dr. S. asked me if I would be interested in going out to the lab at Forest Glen Annex. She explained that I would be doing research on anaerobic bacteria of the mouth. I told her I would love to do that. It sounded interesting and fun. She told me that the SB5 that was out there would train me on what I had to do. Gene told me that he had been moved out there to work alone because he had a problem with serving under women. I started working out there and the SB5 started training me. He was being transferred to another base, so I had a lot to learn in a short time. I started riding the bus to the Forest Glen Annex daily. The SB5 that was training me showed me how to use the anaerobic chamber. We would get pack samples from dental patients sent by dentists during the week. I had to plate each pack in the anaerobic chamber on two sets of blood agar plates, BAP. One set of BAP were kept in the anaerobe chamber for plating the anaerobes to incubate in the anaerobe chamber. The other set of BAP plates were used to plate for growth in the regular incubator. I would place the bacteria on the BAP and grow one plate in the anaerobe chamber and incubate the other plate in the incubator for 24 to 48 hours. When the bacteria grew, I had to pick with a sterilized loop isolated colonies and plate them on two BAPs for each isolated colony. I had to label the specimen number on the plates and fill out a sheet for each organism. I had to put color, shape, matte or glossy, etc. I also had to fill in results for chemical tests performed using mini-tech discs and well plates to help identify the bacteria. Even after isolating the bacteria, I had to plate the bacteria that grew anaerobically over again on two BAP to ensure the bacteria was a true anaerobe. I also learned how to I also learned how to lyophilize bacteria and seal them in vials for storage and, if necessary, rehydrate the bacteria. The biggest problem I had was getting used to using the gloves in the anaerobe chamber. Colonel D had made the anaerobic chamber, and he used gloves that fit him. Colonel D was very tall and had long arms. While my arms were much shorter, I had a good relationship with my mentor, but sometimes he exaggerated his expertise. He once told me that he had set up a metal stand with clamps so that he could seal lyophilized vials. He said that he could seal 12 or 15 vials at one time. Sandy told me he was lying when I mentioned what he said. I met a lot of different people over at the NCOEM Club. I met Warren C. at the NCOEM Club. He seemed nice. One night I was running late to meet him at the Walter Reed Hotel bar for dinner. They played oldies music. I twisted my knee running because a dog charged at me and I swerved to avoid getting bitten. After dinner, I went to the emergency room as my knee was feeling worse. Warren went to the ER with me. My knee was wrapped up and I was told to keep my knee elevated by the doctor. This was hard when I was working in the lab. After several weeks, Warren asked me to marry him and I said yes. We wanted to get rings and I bought them. That should have been a red flag, but I was young and stupid. He took the rings home to Altus, Oklahoma with him. We talked sometimes over the phone. He always wanted money. I took leave to visit him in Oklahoma. I flew from Dulles Airport to Oklahoma City, where I switched to a little airplane. I call it a little putt-putt. We landed at Lawton Municipal Airport in Lawton, Oklahoma. Lawton had some stores and residences, but the landscape was pretty flat. Off in the distance, you could see a large mountain, which is where Altus is. Fort Sill is located in Lawton, Oklahoma. I met Warren's mother and brother. They seemed nice. Warren showed me around Altus. It was a very small town, and there wasn't very much to see. While I was there, I realized that I didn't like or love Warren. He was a ladies' man. We were approached by an irate boyfriend that warned him to stay away from his girlfriend or else. Also, he showed me a car he was making payments on. It was a nice car, but he suggested that we elope and run off so he didn't have to make payments on the car. I told him absolutely not. He wasn't stealing someone's car. I flew back to Walter Reed and work. I felt hurt and betrayed, but I was glad I found out what he was like before I married him. His mother called up to the barracks to beg me to send money to her, and she would make sure he came to D.C. to marry me. I told her flat out I wasn't sending any money, as I was no longer going to marry him. When I was eligible to go before the board, I asked Sandy, Ron, and Maria to question me to help me prepare for the promotion board. The night before the board, I went to the NCOEM club to eat and listen to the DJ. While I was there, I saw an SFC having fun and getting drunk, but I didn't pay attention to him. I left early because I wanted to be fresh and sharp before the board. I wore my Class A's and appeared before the board. I noticed one of the members of the board was the same SFC that I had seen at the club the night before. When it was his turn to ask questions, he asked me, "How do you lower the American flag?" I responded, "You lower the flag to the timing of taps and remove the flag and fold it." He told me that my answer was incorrect. The SGM then told the SFC that it would have been helpful to Specialist 4 Newman if you had told her the flag was at half-mast. The SGM then asked me, "How would you lower the flag from half-mast?" I explained I would raise the flag to the top of the pole before lowering the flag to taps. Several days later, I found out that I had passed the promotion board. I was called by a clerk at personnel telling me that I needed to come to personnel to correct my points. I went down to personnel and we told of my points from work performance and going before the board. I was looking forward to getting promoted soon. And that is all I have for now. And I hope everybody has a nice weekend and enjoy yourselves.